Now, as you may know, there's been widespread condemnation across Nigeria of the killing in Edo State of 16 mostly Hausa hunters over false accusations of kidnapping. The victims were traveling from Port Harcourt to Kano for the Eid holiday when they were stopped by local vigilantes. After finding locally made hunting guns, they were misinterpreted as a threat. A widely circulated video showed the victims being surrounded by youths doused in petrol and set on fire. The governor of Edo State, Monday Ebolo, called the attack barbaric and said the perpetrators must be held accountable. And President Tinubu has added his voice to those urging the security forces to find the people responsible. Well, we're hopefully going to hear later on from either Mr. Ebolo or some of those people who were in it. But for their considered assessments, I'm joined now in the studio by Arise Director of News and Political Editor, Sambo, and by the Legislative Consultant and Public Policy Analyst, Chibuzo Kereke. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for coming in. Let me start with you, Sumner. I mean, how much has this incident intensified concern over rising mob violence in Nigeria and things like, misinformation and the erosion of law and order in this country?
Well, we've had this mob culture in Nigeria for a long time now, and speaks to the fact that we really need to, number one, increase public education among lots of Nigerians, and it actually tells you how a lot of people do not value, the rights of their fellow citizens in the country. Because once something happens, immediately an action is taken without, much investigation. And then it also says a lot about the sort of public confidence people have in security agencies. Because, why was there no presence of the police for, 15, 20, 30, 40 minutes, an hour? That this actually happened. And could it also be that some of these people who undertook this carnage did not believe in the ability of the police to be able to deliver at least immediate justice, or even the courts? So it speaks a lot about how we run the country. And then, of course, one other key issue here is that we had these categories of people who are said to have been hunters traveling from Port Harcourt, River State, way up to Edo State. Does it mean that other security agencies did not stop them on the way? If they had these local and guns, they could also have been asked what they were doing with it and why they were traveling with those guns. And if
late at night.
Yeah. Late at night. So if they actually have had these guns for long, and they have been staying over there, and they were going back to Kano State for the festivities, why did they need to go with the guns? If they are residents in River State, doesn't it also mean that they could have gone to Kano and then they will be back when the Muslim festivities are over? So there are a lot of things, and this is just to say that the government, from what I've seen, actually, they've really done well. We've seen right from the federal government, we've seen actions, including the Office of the National Security Advisor, the Chief of Defense Staff, saying that before this escalates, the authorities at the state should be supported. And the good thing about it is that the governor of Edo State was in Kano State earlier today, where he met with the governor, and then, of course, the deputy president of the Senate too. He met with him in Abuja. So with all of this, we've seen efforts by the Edo State governor to douse tension, and then the emir of Kano, Muhammadu Sanusi, also saying that, look, there should be no reprisal attacks and all of that. The system has been working very well, but at the biggest of all of this challenge is the people's trust in government, that if these people were arrested and handed over to security agencies, that maybe justice could not have been found. That's why they decided to engage in this mob culture.
Indeed, and that's a good way to get into this discussion, Chibuzo Kereke, because obviously there's no excuse for lynching innocent people, but is there perhaps some small note about why the people in that area are so nervous? Because I understand that security there has deteriorated very badly, with lots of kidnappings taking place there and the security forces not being able to get on top of it. and lots of people getting killed and kidnapped, and the local economy devastated as a result.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, most part of Nigeria today are in a culture of state exit. What we call state exit is where people have pulled away from statutory government structures to self-help, whether it's in infrastructure, in social amenities. And then another troubling factor is the absence of local government system. You see, where the local government had collapsed, it becomes difficult for institutions of state to interact with non-state actors. Today in Nigeria, we know it has become the political economy of vigilante group and private security forces has gotten to the highest levels. And these are things we should worry about. For instance, if you are traveling with guns or what have you, even the normal SPU, you can't even fly with it. You have to register your weapons, and then when you land wherever you're going, it should be taken. So if you're traveling that long in the night with the level of insecurity we have, and I agree with Sumner on this, that we should have massive public enlightenment. The country is at war with all kinds of insecurity challenges. How much of knowledge, how much of empowerment in terms of education about how to deal with issues do the people have? And of course, there's no trust between the people and the state actors, the formal structures, police, and what have you. And this is why we're having this mob situation. But what we do after now is even more critical. Are we going to wait for another, mob attack before we start taking action? How is the National Security Advisor's Office interacting with the state-level security system, with local government and traditional rulers? What do we do differently going forward, owing to what had? We may try to solve this in one way or the other with political actors meeting to find solution, but the pain, the hurt will be there, and it's going to be there for long. And what we do after now is very important. We are not running integrative system, and that should be the case. Governance has collapsed at the local government level. And with that, people resort to self-help. We shouldn't be the case. We must also take a look at the framework for vigilante and the private security system. Again, how accountable, who are these people, what kind of training do they have, are they registered, are we able, what kind of rules of engagement do they have in trying to solve security issues at the local level? Yeah.
Indeed, and Sumner, you touched on quite a lot of things, as he has. But I wonder before we get into the potential solutions to this problem, I wonder what further details we have about this incident at this stage. I mean, whether there was a particular action or something that someone might have said, or, how perhaps someone reacted amongst those people that triggered this extreme way that the mob reacted? Or was it just the fact that there were guns found with them?
Well, not necessarily. I listened to the video of the driver of that truck. It's a truck belonging to one of the largest cement manufacturers in the company in the country, and he has said that when he was coming down to that highway, he saw them on the highway and they stopped him to take them, but he told them that the company policy did not allow him to actually get them because he was going to deliver goods. But then he had to turn back after he had left them, being a northerner himself, to go back and carry them since he was going to Kano himself to deliver goods. So he took them, but when they now got to this particular town, Uromi in Edo State, they stopped over, and when they were stopped by this vigilante, the situation that now happened was that they were asked to come down, and he himself and one other person were taken to the police station while those hunters were left. But while they were trying to talk and explain to the police officers that they had met on duty, they got wind that some of these vigilante attacked these other hunters, when they climbed up and they saw them holding some of these local guns and all of that, and immediately someone said, these are headsmen. Another person said, these are Boko Haram terrorists. And then because in Uromi and those suburbs there, they've been having issues of headsmen kidnapping, headsmen going into their farms, and there had been constant reports to the police and security agencies, and nothing much had been done. So there was now that thinking that they should take action, being local vigilantes who hold the trust on behalf of the people there to secure them. They engage in self-help, and that's where the problem of training, like he had said, comes in. What are the rules of engagement for a vigilante group? Aren't they supposed to arrest them and hand them over to the police because they don't have the powers of prosecution or the powers to kill? But just like I said, it's a failure of the citizens to believe in the criminal justice system.
Was it actually the vigilantes who killed them, or was there a mob that came out
well,
and
the
subsequently
vigilantes, like I told you,
created the environment?
Yeah, they've seen. Yeah, I mean,
Right.
they said, okay, these are headsmen. Another person said, these are Boko Haram terrorists. And then, of course, the idea was, there are guns here. So what do? We need to protect ourselves. And then they started making noise, asking for support. And, of course, residents woke up and all of that. And when people got to that, the atmosphere was charged, and there was no leader. So this driver said eventually when he was brought in back together with the police, the truck had been vandalized, these people had been burnt, and he kept saying that these were people I took, and they are not what you are saying that they are. But of course, the atmosphere was too charged for anyone to want to listen. And so that's why I said the criminal justice system is such in a way that there's a deficit of trust in the ability of the police to be able to prosecute these people and then maybe take them to prison, and people can believe that justice will be served. That's why they resorted to self-help. And so this questions the kind of security architecture we run, because when the idea of having state security policing system, like the Amotekun and all of that came up, I remember the late governor of Ondo State, Rotimi Akeredolu, had said that they were going to train a lot of people in Ondo State and all of that, and other Southwest governors who decided to embark on that. Does it mean that in Edo State, when this vigilante group was put in place, that there were no training measures and that they were not aligned alongside security services to provide guidance? And couldn't there have been superior people who would take a look at the sort of guns, to profile the sort of guns, if they are for hunting, or these are guns that could be held by terrorists and all of that? Because in all of this, I haven't heard anyone saying that they were AK-47.
Yes, that's a very good point. And I think what, to be honest, Chibuzo, that horrifies me is the fact that people see people that they suspect of committing a crime, and then they just go ahead and kill them. And not only kill them, but kill them in the most gruesome manner possible. I mean, it's not like somebody maybe shot them. I mean, even then it's bad enough. But to, put tires around them and set them ablaze, it is so barbaric, and it just sounds so unbelievable that people would have the capacity to do that to another human being that you have not actually found guilty of anything, that you simply suspect of doing something. Nevertheless, there is a big problem of worsening insecurity in Nigeria. Is there a way to solve that problem? Some have suggested that a state of emergency should be declared on insecurity, not on River State, which is has a political dispute. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
So, there are many definitions for state of emergency today in Nigeria. And we have seen state of emergency declared in agricultural sector of food security, but we have not seen the productivity index of what that has resulted to. We have seen state of emergency declared in many other sectors. So what that really...
Yeah, but optics are important.
They are important, but what we do when we declare state of emergency is even more, critical, because it's supposed to yield, something. When you declare a state of emergency in any sector or in any state, it presupposes that there is a priority, attention being paid, and certain more resources are now being deployed to meet a dead situation, right? So we have been talking about state police in Nigeria. And you look at the amount of retired police officers or military officers who had opened private security companies. Today in Nigeria, the political economy of private security is very high, very profitable and booming. And that is because there is worsening security situation. And what we can do is not just to create a business around it, but to solve the problem. Today, you cannot even conduct marriages, burial, without the vigilante of that community giving you a list. And this list, these are informal arrangements within formal structures. That should worry people. And that's why the defense agencies have been promoting what they call the whole society approach. But you see, it still suffers from urban bias. These things are just known in capital cities and in the federal capital territory. The local government not functioning, the traditional institutions not having clear role in community development, the Nigerian police system still being centralized is a major issue. And we can address this. We have seen governors on daily basis as part of their security performance, pushing out vehicles, funding the police system in their state. Why is it not possible? Because if you have a democratized, decentralized policing system, not community policing that was used to confuse people and today it has collapsed, they will be able to engage the vigilante group. They will be able to adequately register and train and oversight private security companies. And your governed spaces within the local government can be properly manned. The rules of engagement will be clearer as to when you arrest somebody, this is what you're going to do. If you don't do that, this is the punishment you are going to get. And local communication system will be used. Because indeed in Nigeria, there are many governments. Except you have not gone to the villages. You wouldn't know there are many governments in Nigeria. People wake up, PGs of town unions, traditional rulers, some group of people make their own rules. They can come on a day, block road and say nobody is going. So there are multiple, there appear to be multiple governments in Nigeria, and we can address this by an integrative whole society approach, where our information system and the actions are not urban bias, because it needs to go to the grassroots for the people to have both security literacy, political literacy, to know how to engage and have sympathy for their fellow humans.
Yeah, that's a very reasonable argument. Sumner, I mean, you're director of news, you're a political editor. You've kept across these developments sequentially over the years. I mean, I want to ask you a couple of things. One of them is, how did Nigeria degenerate to this level of insecurity? That's number one. Number two is that, touching on partly what Chibuzo Okereke said, there was supposed to be more police and many more security agencies or agents hired by the government. That was one of the promises of President Tinubu when he was running for office. Have you seen any evidence that many more police officers are being hired and trained?
All right, let's start from the very first one you talked about. The major problem we have in the country right now is that there's no premium on human lives. We don't place premium on human lives. So this happens, and in the next couple of days or 2 or 3 days, this fizzles out and nothing much is done. We move on to the next thing. For example, the issue of the school kids that died sometime in December in Oyo State. I mean, we just keep on moving, and all you hear is that it's been settled out of court. I mean, 30-something kids died.
So
we don't really know
number,
what exactly.
For any country.
Yeah, I mean, even if they reach an out-of-court settlement, what is the government learning from it? How do we preserve human lives? How do we ensure that that doesn't occur again? But what we keep saying is a lethargy in terms of those who are in government to actually put appropriate structures in place for protecting the public space. Because here we have a highway, a public space where people travel across, and it could have been anyone, Charles. It could have been myself, it could have been you.
Absolutely.
And then the thing we have in the problem that's really causing all of this is the issue of ethnic profiling. So people just see you, an assumption is that you're from this,
you
you're
look
from that.
this way,
you
and
look,
therefore,
meanwhile, we're so multicultural. For example, you say me the way I'm dressed, and someone says, I'm a Muslim, and I'm not a Muslim, I'm a Christian. And you see the way he's dressed, he could also mean the other way around. So when are we going to grow out of the mundane in Nigeria? We thought that we're building a nation out of a country, but the more we keep on moving in our countrywide journey, we discover that we are still divided. Like Awolowo said, that Nigeria is just a geographical space. It's just a country. It's not a nation yet. In our journey to nationhood, we haven't bonded so much to be able to know that we need to have respect for human lives, place a premium on human lives, whether the person comes from the east or west or north. And when people see sometimes the way security forces behave and treat fellow citizens, tell me, why wouldn't the vigilante, want to embark on this? Because they know that there will be no so much repercussions, though we are told about 14 to 15 people have been arrested. Let's wait in the next 3 months. What's going to happen to it? You'll just discover that some of these people will be let go and all of that. And so it brings us to the issue of policing. Very fundamental issue of policing. Now, we have a federal police that's cut across every part of the country. There have been efforts to decentralize policing, but of course those efforts have not paid off very well. When the last administration was about going out, they said they had recruited about 10,000 police officers. Later on, we heard it was supernumerary spy police officers, not the regular policing. The issues of salaries came up and all of that. And we don't see this on the streets, because if this could happen for 30 minutes, 1 hour, and you couldn't see police being present there, then it means we have a security failure. Like he also said, there's this concept of the whole of society approach that the security agencies are adopting, which is good, but unless we have that going down, trickling down to the lowest strata, we'll continue to have this mob violence. Something happens in the markets, the next thing is go bring a petrol, go bring tires, and you hung the neck of people. It could just be anybody. And so how do we prevent this? The National Human Rights Commission needs to come into this too. Because these people have been deprived of their fundamental human rights. And this has happened in different places, even in the north too. You've seen religious killings in the name of God. You've seen lots of things happening like this. Beheadings and all of that. The war on terrorism. You see how insurgents are killing people. So if we do not place on the plate the fact that people deserve to live first, whether they are whatever religion or whatever ethnic group they are, then there will be a problem. So fundamentally, the National Human Rights Commission should start educating people on the right of citizenship, the need for you to respect another person's right. And then, of course, the National Orientation Agency should join them. And then, of course, the government should also bring up punitive methods to actually deal with people who engage in mob culture. Because if we don't do this, Charles, anybody could be victims. Even the police have been victims of this kind of situation. They get into communities, before you know it, during elections too, policemen are hounded together and they are set ablaze. And nothing happens to them.
Yes.
So we need to place premium on human lives, irrespective of where you're from. Let's understand what it means to be a country, a nation together. That means whether you're from the north, west, south, east, everybody deserves to have a space in court. Everybody deserves to have a space, in the police station if they are arrested, but not taking the laws into your hand. If we continue like this, it's barbarism, and then, of course, it continues to make Nigeria's ratings internationally very low.
I think that's a hugely important point and series of points that you've made there, Sumner. And Chibuzo Okereke, I think partly what it is also the moral decrepitude in this country, that on all levels, there's so much corruption, but also on the lower levels, so much deprivation and so much anger that they sometimes take it out on things that, instead of maybe either targeting the right place or whatever, although there's no justification for taking the law into your hands, but there's these outbursts. You're a legislative consultant, you're a bit of an expert when it comes to things that happen in the National Assembly. And in looking at the best way to tackle this, you've mentioned a couple of them. And as we assess whether the security services and the government are actually up to the task, is it at the National Assembly that this critical issue should be opened up and discussed, and the right laws put in place to strengthen security in this country? And if you have to decentralize and all the rest of it, these are the representatives of the people, and they make the laws. Is that an important place to take this discussion to?
Yeah, it's an important institution for this. But let me also inform that our politicians have critical role to play. If you participate in political process, in the campaign you see on the TVs are not the real campaigns in Nigeria. If you go to the East during campaign, all you will hear is that APC is Boko Haram. If you go to the North,
so they've all been sloganized.
Yeah, you will hear, and you hear that Labour Party is IPOB.
Right.
These are big politicians saying this in their local languages to the people, all in a bid to get the vote. Now, when we profile Nigeria in that manner, like Sumner said, if you have profiled certain people that when you see them, this is what they represent. When you see them, so this is a country we have with so much division. In the 9th Assembly, the National Assembly actually held a security summit organized by the former speaker, who is now chief of staff to the president. In the 8th Assembly, the Senator Bukola Saraki's Senate, organized a policy dialogue on Nigeria security architecture. And the reports were produced. The 9th Assembly produced a report. This 10th Assembly has been making effort, and indeed has even passed, I think, to second reading the state police bill. We know the governors want a state police, but during the town hall meeting for it, the IGP said we are not right.
As the Inspector General
of Police said we are not, right for it. However, I do not think we can legislate our way out of problem, and this is one issue we face in Nigeria. We need attitudinal change. We need a new political culture where, as Sumner said, premium is placed on the lives of Nigeria.
Indeed.
An average Nigerian do not believe that the country is existing to protect and save he or she. Whether those in Nigeria or those outside Nigeria, we must restore hope, trust, and belief in our country. The National Assembly can legislate the law, which is very important. If we do what we call National Assembly Deliberative Barometer. In the last 18 months or so of this 10th Assembly, issues of insecurity has taken almost 62%. So it's not as if people are not bringing motions, petitions, and what have you there, and legislation is being crafted. However, they will seem to have complete absence of legislative activities at the subnational level, and even worse situation at the local government level. And this becomes a challenge. National Assembly passes a resolution, for instance, expecting a security agency from Abuja to go to the village to intervene somewhere in Kano or in Abia or in Adamawa. No, the state is not part of it. The local government system is not part of it. You can't run a government in that manner. Yeah.
And Sumner, I'm being told that we have to take a break. Yeah. So let me ask you this quickly, because Chibuzo raised that question, and I think it's important for us to note that it is also up to the states rather than just the federal government, because everybody always talks about the federal government. Because, I mean, some states are doing better than others. I mean, they're creating command and control centers and things, which is a good way to start. But is there also a lack of targeted security focus in this country? So, for example, if there were kind of assessments done, studies carried out, and so on and so forth, to show the places that are most vulnerable to crime, then resources can be targeted at those places. You see what I mean? Better targeted and focused on those areas, rather than sort of the big sort of amorphous thing that we've got at the moment.
Yes, I mean, a lot of studies have been, done. Like you said, I was privy to some of the security reports the National Assembly backed on, both the 8th and 9th National Assembly. And of course, once these are presented, we hardly see anything. And then they just hide under the amorphous issue of its national security. You don't need to, the public doesn't need to know so much. And then we lose the traction that we're supposed to gain. And so in essence, we need to hold our leaders more accountable on the issues of security, and couching it under the issues of national security, and then because it's under national security, we don't need to know so much that's going on. We need to decentralize how we look at security issues. If a commission study, people are passing through the highway now. We have federal highway patrol. Now, are you saying that when they were passing through all the states, these hunters and all of that, the federal highway patrol system didn't locate them? The state, the police in the state didn't locate them. And then, of course, people didn't ask questions. And every now and then, we have several roadblocks, especially in southern part of Nigeria. Every now and then, you have roadblocks. So does it mean that that trailer, that truck that had these people with them all through before they got to Rome, that nobody checked? Because it says a lot about what we are doing in this country, and what if those were weapons that were being brought in by terrorists and all of that?
That's how they get away with it.
They would have just got away with it.
Yeah.
And what if they were foreigners? Not just Nigerians. How could they have gone through that system up to that extent? So what needs to happen right now is for the president, for example, to take a look at how to rejig the security system. And when we say rejigging the security system, it's no longer about pouring the military into the streets. It's about policing as a system, because the president had promised us he was going to bring sophisticated policing system and all of that, but we've seen a lot of politics happening in terms of policing. The focus is more on the IG. We haven't seen the essence of governance trickling down and seeing how we could look for a better way. Though the issue of state policing is still at the National Economic Council, and some states have agreed, some states are being careful about it, but nonetheless, it's time for all arms of government to come together. Because if not, we're heading towards a major challenge. And of course, that challenge will have to do, Charles, with the fact that if there's an outbreak of war or anything, you and I may not know what our neighbors may come out with, because there's no profiling as to the sort of guns we're seeing moving around like this one. Indeed.
On that note, gentlemen, please stay with us, because we're going to be talking some more. You're watching Arise Prime Time, plenty more still ahead. We'll continue our chat with our guest commentators who are with me for the rest of the program. Stay with us. Welcome back to Arise Prime Time, where we offer perspectives on the news and talking points of the day. I'm Charles Aniagolo. Now, just over the weekend, the former head of the civil service in Rivers State, George Nweke, held what looked like a rather bizarre news conference. In it, he accused the suspended governor, Sim Fubara, of not only embezzling public funds, but of ordering his chief of staff to burn down the State House of Assembly in Port Harcourt in an attempt to stop impeachment proceedings against him. But in a further twist, his wife went public, claiming that her husband had been kidnapped and forced under duress to make allegations against Governor Fubara. That assertion by Mr. Nweke's wife was later reinforced somewhat by Governor Fubara, who insisted that Mr. Nweke had been made to lie against him and wondered why the former head of service would allow himself to be so thoroughly compromised, a suggestion that Mr. Nweke roundly denied. It truly was an extraordinary back and forth. Take a listen.
Trouble. My husband is in 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 trouble. Look at the message I sent to him. See the message I sent to him. I said, Daddy, why? I said, where are you in hostage? I said, why didn't you talk to me? These are the messages I sent to him. Oh, he did not reply me. His numbers are not going through. His numbers are not going through. Nigeria's helped me. Nigeria's helped me. My husband is the trouble? No? I can't get this so. I can't get this so. My husband is the trouble. No? My husband is the trouble. No? All his wealth has finished off. If she help me, my husband is the trouble.
No, madam, I don't know. I saw something this evening that they granted media this thing. So I'm even surprised that.
It's the trouble. It's the trouble. I don't know, like, he's the bastard one. They have killed him. I don't know if he's alive. Why could I help me? Why could I help me? Why could I help me? Why could I help me?
All right. Okay. No problem. No. It's okay. You're sure you're not aware of this action?
I don't know. He told me the morning that his friend, I remember, he said so.
No, you know what I'm asking. You know what I'm asking. At least there's nothing that happens that he doesn't share with you. Where have I offended him, and where will he cook this level of lies against me? Where have I offended you people? After everything I've done for you people.
He's in trouble. He's in trouble. So please help me.
You heard her when she said that I flew from Port Harcourt to Abuja. I flew with Igbo Air. At least no kidnapper can carry me on a flight. And I know probably, and I believe, that she would have been misinformed. As head of my family, I apologize sincerely to the public on her behalf. Maybe I also think that she did that so that she will escape any harm. Because you know they were already hunting for me.
And that's Mr. Nweke there, who was the former head of service in Rivers State. I mean, that is a little bit out of sequence because you missed his initial allegation. And you missed his initial allegation. Can you just stay where you are, Mr. Stay where you are. Yeah. We missed the initial allegation that was made against the governor. So it was a little bit out of sequence. Nevertheless, you get the gist of it. And Arise Director of News and Political Editor Sumner Sambo and the Legislative Consultant and Public Policy Analyst Chibuzo Kereke are still with me in the studio. Thank you very much indeed for abiding me in the current circumstances. Let me come to you because I think we ended the last sequence with you, Sumner. Turning to the crisis in Rivers State, you've just, I mean, what do you make of these allegations leveled against Governor Fubara by the former head of the civil service in the state, George Nweke?
I think that the Rivers State has now become a theater of,
the absurd.
Absurdities.
And I think we should invite the Nollywood producers to actually...
I was actually thinking about because that guy, some of these people look like pretty good actors. I mean, I don't know if they're acting, but they certainly look like good actors.
To recruit the head of service himself, the wife, and including even the governor, who was saying...
Make a great movie.
To make a great movie. I mean, we are dealing with a serious situation here. This incident happened on the 30th of October 2023. It's now, almost about 2 years. And today we have, and the interesting thing, the former head of service is an FCA, fellow Chartered Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. He's an MNI, member of the National Institute. All those things count, for something. Now, do we really need somebody to raise allegation about who burnt the State Assembly almost 2 years after? What have the security agencies been doing in the last 2 years? By now, we have security cameras there, we have witnesses there, people should have been taken in. Most of the key actors don't have any immunity. So what reports or what records do we have? I mean, for a state that is in a state of emergency, with the governor suspended, we expected by this week for the president to inaugurate a National Peace Committee as recommended in the resolution of the two chambers of the National Assembly, And then the National Assembly is said to constitute a committee to activate Section 11(4) of the Constitution to oversight the activities that is going on there. None of these things, had happened. And the next thing we are seeing is for somebody to go to a hotel room and allege that, governor gave money. I mean, these things, they look like a very big joke, but it's a serious matter. We shouldn't play with governance at the subnational level.
Indeed.
And I'm happy that the engineer, Dr. Nweke, called on security agencies that the evidences he had is going to pass it on to them. And we should start seeing them, in action. But the governor taking call from how did the Channels TV know that the woman was about to call the governor? And
a little bit bizarre,
and the governor saying, upon all that I have done, this is I think the Nollywood people should not miss this opportunity.
Yeah, it's looking a bit like a charade. We're fast running out of time. I was going to ask you about, the fact that Mr. Nweke said that he's got evidence to support his allegations, which he says he intends to, present to law enforcement agencies and so on. But he's kind of brought that up. I wonder what sort of impact, Sumner, you think all this is having on the people of Rivers State, and what it has meant for them in terms of the absence of the proper running of their society. I mean, if someone is in Port Harcourt, you have to wonder what people are seeing and hearing there. And, I even understand that some government workers haven't yet been paid. All these things are having a knock-on effect, aren't they?
Yeah, there is just a deflection of the actual governance challenges ongoing in the state. And then, of course, the heat's been, pumped on President Tinubu over his decision to actually, declare a state of emergency and remove the elected officials in the state. And, of course, which is being challenged by 7 PDP governors who really want to know if the president has that power to the extent that he has gone, or if his powers, if whatever he has done should not be declared ultra-vires. Now, in terms of impact in governance, all of this, like you have said, is just a distraction. Because, here we have someone who was working in the state government and who, in his own words, actually said he was actually the one in charge of government after the elected officials had been swept away. And then he has so much of the information as to what happened and all of that. So why didn't he make it available to the security agencies, including to the president, to actually aid in the understanding of what really went on? Because if the governor's chief of staff, who was also a former speaker within the arrangement there, actually is alleged to have gone ahead to sponsor the destruction, the bombing of that state assembly complex, that's a criminal offense.
Of course it is.
It's a terrorist act, not just a criminal offense, because you have, destroyed a democratic institution. And you would have heard the strong words that President Tinubu used in describing that scenario, calling the governor a despot because he destroyed a state house of assembly allegedly. Now, if that happened and you had all those information, why didn't you even resign before now? And why does it, Mr. Nweke is also making it look like he's actually an ally of Wike that's been bought over? Because he came here and he said he's been lodged in one of the most luxurious hotels, Transcorp Hilton and all of that, only for us to see a counter from the chief of staff, Edison, also saying, with evidence showing that this same Dr. Nweke had been asking for monies as sort of a retirement benefit, saying that he had served the Rivers State government for long and he doesn't have enough to show his loyalty to Governor Fubara. So he needed some sort of monies to build houses, some sort of incentive to be able to encourage him. So if you juxtapose it, you discover that
it looks dodgy.
It looks very, very dodgy. Both of them are actually playing with us. And I'll ask Nigerians not to be distracted. What we need right now is to find out where all the funds that are supposedly being given to the sole administrator in Rivers State are going to at the moment. Because constitutionally, there's no provision for the office of sole administrator. And here we have, and it was said that money could not be released to Governor Fubara because there was no State House of Assembly in place. And now monies are being given to the sole administrator. What's the quantum of money that he can supervise or disburse at this point in time? Because there needs to be accountability.
Indeed.
The sole administrator at the end of the 6 months or 12 months or whatever time is going to be there needs to be accountable to the people of Nigeria as to what he used the monies for. And the allegations ongoing is that the sole administrator, through this revelation from Mweke and all of that, may, one way or the other, have, a situation whereby his mind is a little bit changed because of this new revelation. But we're asking the sole administrator to remain a neutral party, irrespective of which side the head of service remains or not. There's a new head of service. Just go ahead, do your job, be accountable to the president, be accountable to the National Assembly and to the people of Rivers State, so that in 6 months we can say that peace has returned to the state. And enough of these things that are happening. These are distractions that will take no one nowhere. It doesn't pay the salaries of the staff. Governor Fubara too should be very careful with the way because he's under watch now.
Right.
So if I saw him also receiving the Muslim community in Rivers State. If he doesn't know how to manage this period that is under suspension while it's being challenged, there could be a big political problem for him.
Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. Sumner Sambo is Arise Director of News and Political Editor, and Chibuzo Kereke is the Legislative Consultant and Public Policy Analyst. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, bye-bye, and thank you for watching.